Hello and welcome to Silverstone. This is where we are today at the Formula1 Online Racing League. 2 DRS zones in this historic venue, site of the 70th anniversary and British Grand Prix in 2020. We go now to a hot lap with one of our racers today, Fraser.
Starting a lap around Silverstone, you want to stay on the left-hand side so you can have a really nice cut into turn 1. For turn 2, you want to stay as close to the left as possible. For turn 3, you want to start braking as soon as the curb starts. Really glide through that corner, come out wide for turn 4. Then just hit the apex, get on the throttle very early. For turn 5, just cut the inside right here. Open up the DRS. For the next corner, turn 6, you want to get on the curb on the right. Brake on the 50 board, get down to 4th. Really go deep into turn 7. So you can have a really nice exit out of there. Again, get on the throttle as soon as possible. For turn 8, you want to kind of cut it a bit, so you have less of a distance to travel for cops. You want to turn it earlier as the racing line suggests. Now we're coming to maggots and beckets, a very technical part of the track. You want to clip that left curb, then that right curb. Use engine braking for the last part of beckets, and then have a really good exit out of Chapel. The good exit out of Chapel really sets you up for good overtake into Stowe, or even before Stowe with the DRS and the high ERS usage coming into Stowe. Brake is on the midway point of that curb on the left hand side. Stamp on the throttle very early. Coming down to Vale, brake as soon as the curb starts on the right hand side, keep it on 4th. Try to go for late apex on the exit of the chicane and then just stamp on the throttle, and that's basically a lap of Silverstone.
So, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks once again to Fraser, who's racing today in the league, for that footage and that explanation of how to get a nice quick time around Silverstone. We are in qualifying now. We have 13 minutes to go on the clock, and we've already got a couple of times coming in. So we have Fraser out in the lead, the one with that hot lap there. We're just on board now with one of the Mercedes cars. That is Silver Arrow. 27, the car number 14, as they go round to finish their first time lap. Of course, 13 minutes on the clock at the moment, as Silver Arrow goes third with a 1:25.1 there. So we have our session here today. We have only 10 cars, so as long as the drivers finish today, we are going to see points for everybody in the league. Now we have our championship leader, of course, Katermatic, in his McLaren. He's currently in 6th at the moment, about 20 seconds off of the pace or so. So likely on a warm-up lap ahead of his proper timed lap. And we have a few other movers on the grid at the moment. We've got 2 Mercedes, 2 McLarens, and 2 Ferraris, but the rest are all varying teams. So we have Dog representing Racing Point, we have Penichiro representing Renault, and we have VTEC Panda, who you can see on your screens now, representing Alpha Tauri. My name is Daniel Gilligan, and as always, I'm joined by the wonderful man that is Tom Mack. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing really good today. Hopefully we get to see some fantastic racing despite the lower numbers in the Division 1 grid. They had a bit of a stormer in Division 2 from what I was able to catch up on, and we'll later be joined by Quimbulus, I do believe, so look out for him.
Fantastic, good stuff. It's always good to be back every week here, watching some great racing online with the league. Now, in terms of Silverstone then, it's a very technical track, very high-speed nature track, as we see. We're now moving on to one of the McLarens there, and that is Katermatic on your screen now, who has set the new provisional pole time of 1:24.3 in car number 12. Now, with Silverstone, it's a track where you're going to want a reasonably high amount of downforce, but you need to make sure it's efficient downforce. Now, that is always the case in Formula 1, of course. You want to be producing as much downforce for as little drag as possible, but Silverstone, it's more important than ever. You have those high-speed corners, you have cops, you have the first few turns complex, you have, of course, Maggots and Beckets and Chapel. Towards the end of the lap when you're starting the third sector, and you've got a series of other complicated low-speed areas of the circuit as well. Couple that with the DRS zones, you're going to need a good compromise of that downforce and straight line speed in order to be able to affect any overtakes. So, of course, a high angle of attack on your wings will result in a good qualifying time, but you may struggle to keep people behind in the race unless you happen to be out front and storming away. We're having a look at VTEC Panda now, as he's just coming around in Sector 2 at the moment, heading towards Copse, the former first corner, of course, here at Silverstone, before the layout changed back in 2010. Now, he's set a personal best in the first sector, and is coming through to set his time for the second sector. We'll see where that is as he crosses over that split point, as he crosses 1 minute in time, and he's then set a personal best in the second sector. So now coming up to the final few corners, then you've got this long sweeping right-hander here and coming over the crest of the hill, and VTech Panda has actually gone over track limits according to my screen. So he will not set a time this time around. He'll need to recharge the batteries, maybe come into the pits for some new tyres, and then have another attempt. Of course, strict corner cutting rules in the F1 Online Racing League here with partnership from our Formula 1, of course, the F1 subreddit. With these corner cutting rules, they're set by the game. They're not necessarily being monitored by live stewards at the moment. And basically, if you are going outside of the track limits, if you are track extending, then of course your time will be invalidated. Now that's in qualifying, and then in the race, you'll see we'll probably get a few time penalties here and there because, of course, there is time to be gained by extending the track limits. That's why it's not allowed. And so as a result, we will see some drivers perhaps getting some penalties here and there. We've seen some penalties every race so far this season, so wouldn't be surprised if we see some more. Now we've got Neuro now coming around to start their lap as they go through that first sector at the moment. Of course, it's all about keeping your speed up in this section here. Of course, keeping your speed up all around the lap on a Formula 1 circuit, of course. But in that first few corners, you are trying to keep the car as straight as possible. You're not going to want to put too much steering lock in because that is ultimately going to make your slip angle suffer. We're having a picture-in-picture view now of Fraser, who's on another timed lap at the moment, and he's now disappeared from our screen, so he heads into the tight and twisty Maggots and Beckett section of the circuit there. As we continue to look at Neuro heading their way around, they've set a personal best in the first sector, which you would hope, certainly, given that they haven't set a time just yet. And VTech Panda now has a time on the board of 1:25.1. Bit of a squirrely rear end for Neuro there, and then it says that he's extended the track limits there, so off the circuit, and that time is disallowed according to the information available to me at the moment. We have Fraser then coming around the final corner and across the line, 3/10 shy of K-Matic in the lead there, but a purple second sector. So fastest of anybody in the second sector. Now, just to refresh the rules for anybody who has just joined us for the first time today or any returning viewers of the channel, with the Division League rules here, what we do is we have a short qualifying session, which is what we're seeing now. So we only have 18 minutes in total. We, of course, joined you in that first 13, 15 minutes or so, and we're now down to just under 8 minutes. Now, in normal circumstances, when we have more than 10 people, it would then throw up a little bit of strategy because, like in the real world, of course, when you end up having a split between those in the top 10 and those not, you will have free tyre choice if you're starting outside the top 10, and you will have to start the race on the tyre you set your Q2 time on if you are in the top 10. However, with our short qualifying format, it means that anybody who finishes in the top 10 will start on whatever they set their time on. That is, of course, providing that it is a dry race. It could be that we end up going to a wet race, in which case we'd end up seeing and we've had a small technical issue, I think. So I'll tell you what we'll do then. I'll as a bit more of a radio setup because my application is still running here. So just whilst Tom, our man on the technical side, is sorting all that out, I'm just going to switch over to my own view here. So in terms of those guys circling the track at the moment, I've just noticed that there is a bit of a technical issue for K-Matic. He has lost a bit of front wing. His front left end plate is gone. So he's going to be losing some downforce, and there we go. We see just getting onto the grass and getting a bit out of shape, going through Chapel there at the end of that Maggots and Beckett section, heading into the third and final sector. So that lap time has been invalidated. I can see that on the track map that I have on my screen here, and he's dived into the pit lane now in order to get that damage repaired, put on some new boots, and then go again later on. So as we have a look down your order then, just to remind everybody as to where everybody stands at the moment, whilst our picture is coming back, we have K-Matic currently in the lead on provisional pole position with a 1:24.362. Then we have Fraser in second place with a 1:24.6. Latzo then behind him in the 1:25s, and then Rage just behind the the current reigning Division 2 champion on PC. Now in the big leagues of Division 1 is only a couple of hundredths behind Lazio at the moment in position 3. So potentially starting on the clean side of the grid on the second row is possible for Rage. Of course, we do have some of the quick drivers of Division 1 like Penalties, Neuro, and like $100 still yet to set a time. But then as we look beneath Rage, so in P5 we have VTech Panda currently, then Dog, then Silver Arrow 27, and Penalties has just set a lap time, a 1:25.5, which puts them in 8th place, which is where they were previously when they hadn't set a time. We then have Neuro and like $100. They're currently sat in the pits at the moment. We currently have only Penalties circulating at the moment, with Silver Arrow having just come across the line and set a new time for them to put them up to 3rd place, a 1:24.8. So the top 3 then separated by about half a second, with a good 3/10 gap between each one of them, about 2-3 tenths gap between each one. And then we have that 2/10 gap back from Silver Arrow to Lazio and Rage, who are just trading those couple of hundredths, as we say. So in terms of those who we should be looking out for today, of course, K-Matic is always quick. He's always up the front. We've seen that in all the races so far this year. And whilst it's something that we had predicted and forecasted in the earlier races, but we didn't get a chance to see really until the Canadian Grand Prix. But whilst Kato is incredibly quick, massively quick, he can occasionally be prone to mistakes. Now, that was something that we were saying and then seemingly not being backed up on at all in those earlier races. But in the Canadian Grand Prix, as I say, there was a small mistake after the safety car restart towards the end of the race, which dropped him back down the positions and allowed VTech Panda to take the win. Now, we've got a yellow flag in Sector 3 at the moment. That's just by Penalties slowing down for the pit entry. So that's now been changed to green, and Silver Arrow has also gone into the pits. So all cars currently in the pits then. And just another reminder then, your running order for the 10 drivers in today's race is as follows. You have K-Matic at P1, then Fraser, Silver Arrow 27, Lazio 123, Rage, VTech Panda, Dog, Penalties, Neuro, and like $100, with those last 2 there yet to set a time. We now have VTech Panda and Dog starting to leave the pits and go onto their outlaps. Of those 2, Dog is in the lead on track at the moment. He has that track position, but I don't think he'll be bothered all that much by VTech Panda or likewise, because those 2 drivers are very far apart on the circuit at the moment. There's a good, I'd say about 7-8 second gap between them at the moment as they're circulating. And see how our stream is doing. Are we all back up and running, Tom?
We are. Codemasters proving their name worthy once again. We're getting a crash. We've swapped versions to DirectX 11, and hopefully that makes things a little bit better. I apologise for that, and let's hope that that's a one-off thing, which I somehow doubt. But I am pleased to say that we are now joined by Quimbulus.
How you guys doing?
Fantastically well, thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. How has your race gone today, Quimbulus?
It started a little bit unfortunate with some contact and getting pushed off the track in lap 1, but it turned into a recovery race. So I was trying to storm my way back up through the field there. In the newly combined Xbox division is condensed down to one solid division to keep the grids a little bit fuller.
Fantastic, good stuff. So you have that.
We managed to avoid rain. We had rain the last 2 weeks in the Xbox races, but this week in Britain, ironically, no rain. So we had a dry session for ourselves. Don't know what the weather looks like for you guys here in PCAC. I'm joining during qualifying. I heard a moment about some connection and version issues, but it looks like things seem to be running now.
They certainly do. They certainly do. For those who are not familiar, Quimbulus here is he's our equivalent to our Martin Brundle or our David Coulthard or James Hunt even, if we want to be a bit more glamorous and a bit more old school. So he is a driver in the Xbox division, which, as he has just pointed out for us today, has been combined into a singular league to have some nice close racing between varying skill levels and nice full grids. So he's our man for all the driving-related questions. If you do have any in the Twitch chat, then please do let us know, and we will try and relay them as best we can. So then, as we're having those field currently. We have who's out on track currently. So on a time lap, we have Fraser and VTech Panda and Dog, who we mentioned coming out the pits a little bit earlier on. Of those drivers, Dog is still in the lead of that group, and it looks as though he seems to be on an okay lap at the moment. He's lost a bit of time to VTech Panda behind him, though. So either VTech's on a flyer, or maybe Dog has had a bit of a shocker, and judged by him peeling into the pits, he has decided to abandon that lap, and so he will not set a new lap time in the last 43 seconds of the session. VTech Panda comes around the final corner then and jumps up to P3, only 4/10 off of K-Tomatic, who is still maintaining his lead in provisional pole. And then we have the man himself is on a lap at the moment. We also have Fraser, who is the closest to finishing a lap at the moment of the cars on circuit. Like $100 still in the pits. Neuro still in the pits as well. Oh, no, sorry, is out on track and has the medium tyres fitted. So wanting to get that tyre advantage by starting on the harder rubber. Now, as we see Fraser come across the line, it's no improvement, unfortunately. It is still P2. We have VTech going very slowly in Sector 1, going into Sector 2, but that has now cleared up. He just seemed to be letting some people by, I think. So no harm, no foul there. Dog crosses the line and doesn't improve on his position. Like $100 is still in the pits, so the time now gone in the session, he is going to stay in there. And hopefully he comes back for the race, but we'll wait and see, I suppose. We've got then few other cars out on circuit. The next one to cross the line will be Penichiro, who is coming around his Renault now. And what time does he set? Well, he improves his time. He is now within a second of pole position. He is 9/10 away, but is still in 8th place. So we've then got who else on track at the moment? So we've got the Mercedes out in force at the moment. Silver Arrow 27 is coming around, and that yellow flag in Sector 3 is not for him, fortunately enough for him. So he's now rounding the final couple of corners and heading towards the line. What time will it be? Where will it put him? It's P4 with improvement now with only 7/10 to K-Tomatic and only 3/1000 off of his teammate Lazzo, who has also finished the session now, as we have a look at who else is setting a time. Currently, it's only Fraser. Fraser is the only car now on circuit who is still on a lap, but he's now peeled into the pits. So that is your order then for qualifying. We have K-Tomatic on pole with a 1:24.0. So he has improved from the time he set earlier on. And I'm just now waiting for the menus to come back up so we can tell you the rest of the order here. And as we do so, I'm just going to have a quick look at our Twitch chat. So then, as the results come back up on my screen, we have Fraser in P2, Lazzo 1, 2, 3 in 3rd, then Silver Arrow in 4th, Rage, VTech Panda, Dog, Penichiro, Neuro on those medium tyres, setting a 1:25.9 in the end, and then like $100 in the Ferrari, still not having set a time. I'm hoping that it is not a case of the Ferrari strategist suggesting that no qualifying at all would be the better way to go, but we will wait and see. Chaps, what do we think of this grid then? How is it lining up?
Well, it seems to be finding an order that we see week in, week out. Good to see both of the Mercedes sharing a row and only a couple thousandths between them. But it looks like strategy-wise, pretty much everybody's starting on that soft compound attire to kick it off, although very cloudy looking out there. So we'll see how that affects our strategies going through the race. In a dry session, typically should be a one-stopper, starting on the soft, going onto the medium, or vice versa. If you come in a couple of laps early off in the softs, you can really push the hard tires quite a long way in this race. But the pit lane is so long and so slow that a two-stop is pretty much right out the window around here.
And for your race in the Xbox division, what were the popular strategies? Have Codemasters modeled the exploding tires on the final lap by any chance?
They haven't really exploded on the final lap. In test runs, I was able to actually take the hard tire the entire race distance after pitting after lap 1, so it was a lot more durable than the real world one, although that front left does still take quite a bit of a beating around this circuit. So you need to watch out for the temperatures. I would estimate a lot of drivers in their setup are running very low tire pressures in order to help keep that front left tire in a good operating window. Otherwise, if that tire starts to overheat and you try to make that flat right-hander through cops, you're going to understeer right off the outside, and there's a bit of a bump on the exit there. So if you get a little bit wide, it could spell the end of your race. And same thing coming through turn 1 at Abbey if you have that heated up front left. Not getting that car turned in can spell disaster. There's not a lot of barriers close around, but when you crash around Silverstone, you're typically doing it at pretty high speed, and you're going to cover that runoff all the way to a barrier.
Oh, there we go then, ladies and gents. A nice informative bit of info from Quimbulus there. Now, just one thing that is being asked in the chat at the moment is, what is the weather looking like? Tom, do we have a graphic that's going to tell us that? Oh, we do. And it's 20 degrees air temperature, 28 degrees track temperature. We've got about 12% humidity at the moment on the circuit, and wind speed is 14.7 kilometers an hour. So in terms of the weather forecast, do we have, as Katie Massey just has a bit of a dip of his tyres onto the grass there, going through Maggots and Beckett. Now, they're on this formation lap at the moment, Cribulus, and how important in this game, in particular, if we ignore previous games, is it to get your tyres prepped on the formation lap? Is it something that is vital to your first lap and ultimately your race success, or is it something which really is a bit more of a novelty?
It falls somewhere in between the two. It can definitely help your launch by a little bit, but as you've seen sometimes when two cars come together on the formation lap, they get disqualified and sent directly to the grid. So you're essentially starting on stone cold tires. And you do see typically those cars get a bit of a slower getaway, but the tires do tend to warm up around your first flying lap pretty quickly. So it's a little bit of a difference. I think around here, having that little bit of extra grip to take turn one a bit quicker, since there's not really much of a braking zone for it, it can lead to a little bit more benefit here as opposed to a circuit where you're putting a lot of energy through those front tires by braking hard like Bahrain.
Fantastic, good stuff. So we've got the lights then. Let's hope they all go out for us at the same time. Lights out on my screen. And we're still standing. And away we go. There we go then. So it's a good start then up at the front for K-Tomatic. Then Fraser is getting into turn one. Oh, he's under threat though from Lazzo, who goes around the outside and into P2. But can Fraser keep it up the inside? And he's been passed around the outside and now turning to the inside for the next corner by Lazzo. So the Williams driver slipping down the order as K-Tomatic starts to stretch his lead out in front. Already a second ahead of the rest of the field as they all scrap together then. We've got some movement in the back then. We have Dog has fallen down the order slightly. We've got Penachiro making the moves. Neuro has gained a position off at the start. Then we have Fraser still battling Lazzo up at the front. He's now up the inside, but will he get a good exit out of here? Or they're side by side, almost touching wheels. And yes, he's been able to snake his way in front as they head now down to Cops. The two Mercedes drivers are biting at one another and then trying to get a sniff on the Williams as well. They don't want to be coming together. That Constructors' Championship, of course, very important in the Formula 1 Racing League, as they now make their way down through Maggots and Beckett. It's difficult to follow through this section as the cars are now all winding their way through, making sure that they don't go too far over the limit here. Don't want to be making a mistake this early on in the race. You can win the race, of course, only by finishing, and you don't want to be making a mistake, as Quimbula says, at these high speeds. Rage has made his way by Silveraro, going around the outside of the Mercedes driver, and around he goes and up into position number 4. The Ferrari running a nice high up position there as his teammate runs at the back of the field, and hopefully he's going to be able to make some ground after no show in qualifying. So K-Tomatic sets our first fastest lap of the Grand Prix, a 1:30, which I'm sure we'll see going down over the course of this race. Then we have Fraser, Lazzo, Rage, Silveraro, Penachiro, Neuro, VTech Panda, Dog, and Like $100 rounding out the order. I haven't seen any clashes or any comings together on that first lap there. Chaps, what have you been seeing from your side?
Well, flipping through, I'm checking down just to make sure front wings seem to be intact up and down the field. VTech Panda has made his way up a position. He had dropped to the back of the field at the start, but has gotten past like $100. I just want to call out, though, Kato's gap at the front, 2 full seconds now. And really the key to that was his getaway off the line. He was able to fully clear Fraser. And since that P1 position starts on the outside, he has the normal racing line. Being able to clear Fraser completely before turning into Abby allowed him to take it completely flat. Whereas if you're side by side with another car, ooh, it looks like Lazzo's gone off. He's dropped it round, coming through Cops.
Lazzo is round what was a promising start then, as he was running only about half a second or so behind Fraser and looking solid on for a podium finish. He now falls to the back of the field. He's fortunately been able to gather it reasonably quickly, and he's not too far back, but we'll now see his progress and see whether or not he'll be able to turn that fast speed he had in qualifying and in these first opening lap or so of the race into a good bit of damage recovery. So then, looking up and down the field, I do apologize, as K-Tomatic sets our new fastest lap, a 1:27.9 in the McLaren. DRS is now enabled, and the closest battles on track at the moment are happening for P4, 5, and 6, and 7, in fact, with them all less than a second within one another. We have Rage at the front of that particular train, about about half a second or so behind Silver Arrow. So indeed, even a podium could be on the cards here for the Division 2 champion. As he now opens the DRS. Silver Arrow does not have it themselves in order to defend, but they've got enough legs on the Ferrari behind to be able to maintain track position. And there's now a yellow flag in Sector 1 as like $100 has gone round. He has gone off the circuit then, and he's going slowly. He's going very slowly now, and he's not ghosted, so he is still driving the car, but he's now got an awful lot of work to do. He's 12 seconds back from Lazzo, who in addition is 5 seconds back from Dog at the back of the main train of the field. Looking up and down the field, then we have Rage still very close to the back of Silver Arrow. It's about 4 tenths now, the gap, 5 tenths as they go through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, as they now head onto Hangar Straight, onto the big DRS straight, with the opportunity to overtake at the end of it. If we look on board, there's no overtake usage from either of the drivers, as both their ERS are getting relatively low, and it's 3 tenths the gap now as they go through the last few corners and onto the next lap. Quibulus, what do you reckon so far?
Well, like $100 has had a bit of a rough start. He dropped it in the first sector, but he had also dropped it in the final sector just before that and fallen off the back. But it looks like Silver Arrow had to kind of check up when Lazzo went around, because he was running fairly close to that group with Frazier as well. But now he's almost 3 seconds off and now leading this big DRS train, including Rage, Pinachero, Neuro, and VTech Panda. And Dog is just dropping off of that 1 second mark. But I would say take a look at Stowe as one of the best overtaking opportunities around this track. You can really try and tuck yourself up behind somebody through Maggots and Beckett's. The dirty air not as significant as it is in real life, so you can kind of set your driver up. And then Stowe is going to be probably one of the best overtaking opportunities with that DRS help. But Kato's stretching out that 3 second gap, another 3 seconds back to Silver Arrow, who is under constant attack from Rage right now. So we'll see if he can open up that gap or if Rage is going to make his way through.
Now, as we're looking at this battle then with Silver Arrow and Rage for that final podium position, number 3, we do notice, if we just look a little bit further back, that we've got Penachiro following closely behind, ready to pounce on any mistake from either of the drivers in front. But then crucially, just behind him is Neuro with those medium tires fitted to the car. Obviously starting on them, as with everybody else, starting on the softs, and only as now VTech Panda clears him. VTech Panda has gone by Neuro now on those medium tires. VTech Panda on the softs, of course, making a good recovery drive here after falling all the way, as you say, down to the bottom of the field, as Rage is now closed up to as much as 2 tenths behind Silver Arrow. So can we see maybe the first podium in PC Division 1 for the reigning Formula 2 champion, for the Division 2 champion indeed?
He's definitely put himself in a very good position at this stage of the race, and Neuro has to try and make his way back past VTech Panda. Utilizing those medium tires at this early stage is going to be very, very important for him in his overall strategy. He's going to have very good pace at the end of the race, but Rage now just kind of having little peaks at Silver Arrow back and forth as they come into Brooklands.
Fantastic stuff this to watch. Don't adjust your sets, don't go anywhere, as Rage has gotten a good exit out of that corner there and is now only 3.5 tenths behind Silver Arrows. They're now going towards Cops and then Maggots and Beckett's. Little bit of a dip of the wheels onto the grass from Rage, just trying to open up that corner as much as possible so he can then get a nice clean line through, as I go on board with him just now, just having a look at the lines here. So taking a bit more of a straight line through the first few corners of the Maggots and Beckett section, but then Silver Arrow getting a nice good exit to get through Chapel and then be able to get down that Hangar Straight. And again, no use of the overtake from either of the drivers, either to defend or attack at this stage. So it's interesting that they're holding station like this, and then it's obviously, of course, causing those drivers behind Penachiro, VTech and Neuro to be caught in this DRS train, to be unable to really make massive headway and massive gains to those guys in front, but similarly not falling back either, because clearly there is some pace in those cars. Now, in terms of our battle out in the front, well, it seems to have stabilized now from the good gap that K-Matic was able to build up at the start of about 2 seconds or so over the first lap. It's now lap 6, and it's about 3.3 seconds, the gap from him back to Fraser. Fraser seems to have found his feet a bit more as this race has gone on and is starting to close that gap up once again. Perhaps maybe able to keep those tires in a better condition and just be able to preserve them that little bit more as they're starting to circulate now and get a bit of wear on those tires. Then Silver Arrow, of course, 4.2 seconds back under that constant pressure that we've been talking about from Rage behind, from the rest of the field behind them. And what looked like a very, very quick car is now looking like a car that is that is just trying its best to stay in front as much as possible, using everything it possibly can, except that overtake button, it seems.
Yeah, around Silverstone here, there's only a few real big stops to recharge that battery. So you have to be very picky with when you're using that overtake. Otherwise, you can run out of battery really quickly and have it run out in a very inopportune place. You have to pretty much nail the exit of Chapel in order to really attack somebody through Stowe, even with that DRS. So picking and choosing when to use that overtake button. I mean, you can see they're already down in the 19-20% range as far as their battery. So they've been using it, but only in little short bursts to get them off of corners and really trying to save it for when they absolutely need it. I would estimate Rage is going to save up a fair chunk of battery and then have an all-out attack down into Stowe. Otherwise, seems like right now he's pretty happy to sit in, maybe even conserving some fuel and just letting the slipstream pull him along.
Now, as we're very, very focused on this battle between Rage and Silver Arrow, of course, we have been mentioning Penichiro and VTech Panda, both very close and very much in that hunt as well. But crucially, what you've just been talking about there with Rage in terms of, wanting to build up a nice power charge and be able to then make a proper attack. If we have a look at VTech Panda's overall ERS charge, he has about 65% now as he goes into the braking zone, and Penichiro's gone wide at the apex, has made a bit of a mistake, and now under a massive amount of pressure from VTech Panda, only 2.5 tenths behind. We've said it loads of times before, VTech tends to not be the greatest qualifier that we have on the grid, but has fantastic race pace, is able to make those tyres work, is able to get them to last that bit longer and give him more pace where his rivals might start to falter. Now, with that bit of pressure there that he's got on Penichiro, is that going to be something he's going to be able to exploit here? With that 60% ERS that he's got as they head through Mackett's, Beckett's and Chapel and onto the Hangar Straight, will there be an opportunity for a move here? The DRS has been activated, overtake is enabled, and Penichiro is staying ahead he's just able to maintain that gap. That DRS to him from Rage is helping him more than he realizes, as just behind VTech. Now, as VTech goes into the pit, VTech Panda has blinked first and gone into the pit lane. So he's going to change those tires, potentially get an undercut on this field and this battle ahead of him. And if he's able to convert that into a good quick pit stop, then we may see some interesting movements throughout the field here. Because obviously, it's difficult to make a pass here, we're seeing so far. Did you find it was the same sort of thing in your race, Quimbulis?
Yeah, when there was DRS trains around, it was real tough to make any moves. When you're battling one-on-one, those DRS zones are pretty powerful. But as you saw, VTech Panda got a great exit out of Chapel and just still was unable to make a move with the DRS, with the overtake button on Penichiro. So it's in the window. He can stretch those medium tires to the end. So he's going to go ahead and try and undercut, make something different work. And if anybody can stretch the tire stint a little bit longer, it's VTech Panda.
Absolutely good stuff. So he's onto those medium tires now then, and we're going to see whereabouts he comes out relative to the rest of the field. Rage has dropped back a bit after following lap after lap after lap, about half a second, even less sometimes, behind Silver Arrow. It seems now that that gap has started to extend just a little bit more, and it seems though we're starting to see the effect of tire wear coming in now as Penichiro is dropping back, and Neuro is able to maintain the gap to him, and Penichiro does not have the DRS now, crucially. So with the DRS open, Neuro is closing. Will he go for the move up the inside? No, he thinks the better of it. He manages to keep tucked in behind, though. He has 52% ERS charge, so just a bit more than what Penichiro has available. And hopefully these guys are going to give us a nice, good battle to see later on, though. But crucially, they all go by the pits. They do not decide to pit. So Penichiro, Rage, and Silver Arrow are all at risk now of an undercut from VTech Panda, who has clean air. Nice clean air. There's a bit of a twitch there from Neuro going through turns 1 and 2. And if we have a look at K-Matic out in front, we're seeing a good gap appearing in front there. 5.4 seconds now. So whilst he seemed to be losing a bit of time to Fraser, that gap has now extended massively. These guys just able to pump out really quick lap times and able to just peel away from the rest of the field. It will be interesting to see whether this pushing will lead to a mistake, or maybe he'll be able to maintain it and, as he has done so many times this season, give us a Grand Slam, a podium, lead every lap and race win and all the rest of it. So we have then that gap stabilizing now, 5.3 seconds there. Rage still within a second of Silver Arrow just ahead, so we'll get the DRS heading into the Hangar Straight here, as we now see, is K-Matic going to go into the pits? No, he seems to be staying out this time, So maintaining, or no, he is in the pits. I do apologize. My track map lied to me. So into the pits then for K-Matic, and Fraser follows him in. We then have Silver Arrow continuing on, so choosing not to go on to those new tyres. And so he'll be able to pit later. He'll be able to have tyres that will be in a best condition towards the end of the race, hopefully to defend from those guys chasing him, like Rage, who is still hot on his heels, but not much of a threat anymore, you would think, in terms of that gap. That gap has now stretched out a bit, as we see a few other cars in the pits then. So who is coming in? We've got... Sorry, I lied. No one else has come into the pits on that lap. So we have Penichiro then, the closest to anybody else out on track at the moment. He has been overtaken, in fact, by Neuro. Neuro has gotten by Penichiro, who now has to defend the Renault driver using DRS and overtake to try and get by. And as Neuro, though, maintains that inside line, is able to just defend nicely there and keep the Renault behind, as Penichiro now half a second back from the McLaren driver. These guys then, as they're trundling about, of course, the guys on the softer tyres, they're not really going to get much more benefit by staying out in terms of trying to get onto the back of the leaders. They are going to be trying now to just maximize their position, optimize their performance, as a 3-second time penalty has been handed out to Rage for exceeding track limits and multiple warnings. So that is that strict corner cutting rule that the league applies, and that is going to potentially have an effect towards the end of this race. Crimbulis, what can you tell us in terms of penalties? Have we had many been dished out so far? What can you see on the race director?
Let me take a peek. I've seen a few popping up here and there, but let's take a peek and see. We've got Rage obviously carrying, he just got that penalty. Neuro is only carrying one warning of his own, but Silver Arrow out in the front carrying a penalty. So it looks like a few drivers carrying a penalty, Dog carrying 2 penalties worth of time. And for the leader, Kato, he has 2 warnings that he picked up on his final lap on the softs, but he has yet to receive a penalty as far as the front battle goes. Fraser as well, without a penalty, only 1 warning to his name.
Okay, then. So we've had a bit of action then as we've been looking through all of that. So Fraser and K-Matic have now gone by Silver Arrow and Dog, who've both gone into the pit. But where does VTech Panda come out relative to those guys? Well, he's ahead of Dog, but he's just behind VTech Panda, but only 3/10 back. And with nice warm tyres that are up to temperature from pounding round for a couple of laps, we'll now see whether or not there's any move on this first DRS straight, as the overtake button has been enabled by VTech. VTech now closing up to the back of Silver Arrow, who's got no DRS to defend with. VTech looking up the inside, but he doesn't go for the move. He doesn't do it. He thinks better of it. But crucially, now we've got Rage out in the lead of this race, the Ferrari leading a race for the first time in 2020, I would imagine. And with that there, we have a 10-lap stint now. 10 laps Rage has been on those tyres, coming around to finish the 11th lap of this race. Will he go round again, or will he go into the pits? We'll find out now. He's into the pits. So who will follow him? Well, Penichiro has gone in as well, and Lazzo goes in as well. So all of those guys who started on the soft tyre at the beginning of this race have now either pitted or are in the pit lane to get those tyres changed. Neuro now leads the race with 11-lap-old mediums, and of course he'll be able to switch on to the softs toward the end of the race, have a lot of pace to come through, as we have like $100 off the track. Is now a DNF. He's gone straight on into the wall, it looks like. Just looking at the onboard camera from Neuro. And I'll go on board with K-Matic here, but no, now the car is gone. So we can't see what happened there. But like $100 does not finish in this race. So the Ferrari is out. 1 Ferrari remaining. Rage now filters back out behind VTech Panda. A bit of a gap that he's going to have to make up now to the Alpha Tauri driver and the Mercedes driver Silver Arrow ahead. Silver Arrow defending well here. He's been able to keep VTech behind. And VTech, I think, being very conservative with his energy use. He's got about 60% of his energy, whilst Silver Arrow does as well, but it doesn't seem to be they're using massive amounts of it on the straights. You know, the overtake button is exactly for that, is for overtaking. And the straights with DRS, when your opponent in front does not have DRS, is probably going to be one of the better times to use it. Would you agree, Cumulus?
Yeah, absolutely. The only devil's advocate I'll play is it is tough to overtake around here, and when you're battling with somebody, it's going to cost you more time on cars around, and with only a 3-second gap to Rage behind them, and they might be trying to reel in Fraser. They may have a bit of an unspoken agreement where they've both understood that fighting at this point isn't necessarily going to help either of them. So maybe just conserve, work together, build a bit more of a gap to Rage behind, who was right in that fight with them before the pit stop cycles. maybe try and get themselves a little bit of a cushion. But yeah, it looks like right now that VTech Panda is making use of that DRS, but not of the overtake button. And maybe he's trying to either persuade Silver Arrow into burning his own overtake, keeping VTech behind, or they're just trying to work up to the cars ahead.
Interesting stuff. I wonder how this is going to work out for VTech, because ultimately he went for that undercut. He managed to gain a few positions out of it as a result, but he hasn't been able to clear the guy who's now that bottleneck for him, preventing him from closing up on Fraser. And of course, that is a virtual P3, because when Neuro comes into the pits, with the gaps as they are currently, he's not going to come back out ahead of Silver Arrow. So Silver Arrow will be promoted up to P3. As, of course, K-Matic and Fraser will be promoted up as well by a position. And VTech, with those slightly more worn tyres, he's going to have to end up looking in his rear mirrors at Rage as he starts to close that gap up. 3.6 seconds the gap now. And, of course, from Neuro, when Neuro is on the charge later on. You lose a lot of time here in the pits in Silverstone, as we can see here. Closest battle on track is at the back of the field, with Lazzo now going up the inside. The Mercedes driver going up the inside of Penachura, and will he make a move up the inside of Cobbs? Oh, it's very close indeed, as Dog maintains the position heading towards Maggots and Beckett's. But will that position still be his when they get onto the hangar straight and onto the DRS? We will see in just a moment's time, as Dog now goes through Chapel. There's a good line through there. Of course, disturbed by the dirty air, Lazzo is behind, and now the Mercedes driver, DRS open, overtake in use briefly as K-Matic sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix with a 1:27.0, and Lazzo very close to the back of Dog there, but not close enough to affect a move. But this run down here towards the chicane could be an area where he might send it up the inside, but no, he thinks better of it. They now go through this corner here, clips the apex nicely. Is it going to be around the outside? They're side by side, and through the final corner, only really one line through there. Oh, and he's been able to defend well as Dog here, but up the inside through turn one might be his undoing here. And oh, they've come together. Lazzo is round for the second time in this race, and into the gravel. The Mercedes driver back to the back of the field. Oh, and that was some good edge of the seat action there for a couple of corners, but it's now on to Penachiro fighting Dog there. And Quimbulis, what did you think of that racing incident, or is there any blame to your portion there?
At first look, I was on the exterior camera, so it looked kind of just a racing incident. It looked like he got a little too inside on the curb. I would have to check in on board to see if there was a coming together, but it was interesting to me to see Lazzo not use the overtake all the way down into Stowe and get the move done there. He had the overspeed for it, instead opting to try and make a move up the inside of Abbey, which is a flat corner if you're on the right line, but it's very tough to race somebody down there. So an interesting decision, maybe not the one I would have made, but he did well to hang side by side with Dog for that long. But I think he may have just gotten a little too much curb and brought the rear end around as it hopped and unstabilized the car.
Ah, dear. Well, there we go then. In the wars today is Lazzo. Certainly he'll be thought on well by me, at least, for at least trying to give us some excitement in this race. With the other cars stuck in DRS trains and all the rest of it, it's proving to be just a little bit of a procession at the moment. We'd like to see a bit more action. Penachiro might provide us with that, though. He's only 2.5 tenths now behind Dog. He's gotten a good exit out of the last few corners there and is now just closing up slightly to the Racing Point driver. Oh, hey, in the Twitch chat, saying that perhaps Lazzo was being optimistic in turn one, or perhaps Dog needs to leave some space. What do we think? Let us know in that chat there. So we have closest battle on track then is still Penachiro, still about that half second or so behind Dog, and that's now down to 3 tenths as they head on to the first of these DRS straights. Good exit though, DRS, overtake, both in use, and up the inside goes Penachiro and into position number 7. The Renault driver getting one up there on the Racing Point driver. Will Dog be able to hang it back around the outside? No, I think not. Instead, he is going to try and get a good exit out of that hairpin and then give a chase on Penachiro down towards Cops and the Maggots and Beckett section of the circuit. So then, that's a change in position there with Dog now 7 tenths back. How will he fare through these corners, these tight and twisty sections with that dirty air, making life a bit difficult to follow, especially in these current generation Formula 1 cars? What will we see when he comes out of here? Well, overtake is active, and so is the DRS. Overtake is now off on Dog's car, and without the DRS to defend, you would think that Penachiro would fall a bit further back, but perhaps the Renault driver having a bit less downforce on the car. And Fraser now has moved up into P2 as Neuro has come in for that expected pit stop. He is still ahead. No, he's now dropped back. So he's now in P5 behind Silver Arrow, VTech Panda, and now Rage goes by as well. Rage, of course, on 3-lap-old now, medium tyres. Penichiro is the next one who's going to come along and perhaps threaten Neuro. Yes, he gets by. Will Dog get by as well? It's going to be very close. But those soft tyres, will they give him the grip needed just to get ahead? Yes, he does. I think that's going to be crucial for his end of race result. And he can now chase after Penichiro with those brand new soft tyres, which will give him a good grip benefit versus his rival in the banana car. So, rundown of your order very quickly. We have Katematic out in the lead with an 8.5-second lead over Fraser in P2. Then Silver Arrow, who's closely chased by VTech Panda in P4. Only 0.6 the gap between those guys there. Then we have Rage in P5, Penichiro P6, and then in P7 we have Neuro, who's just made that move to get by Dog coming out the pits, and now closing in on Penichiro ahead. Dog then in 8th position, and Lazzo at the back in 9th. Still, of course, going to score points if he makes it to the end of the race today, but I'm sure he would have hoped for an awful lot more qualifying where he did.
Yeah, unfortunately getting caught up in a couple of incidents over the course of this race, dropping him to the back of the field after a very strong qualifying performance. I'm sure he's going to look up and see where Silver Arrow is.
Sorry, just to interrupt you there, Quimbulis. We've got a move then from Neuro. It was expected, and it's happened very quickly. He's been able to go up the inside and pass Penichiro there, who didn't offer much of a fight, didn't really defend the position. He knows he's not really racing Neuro with those brand new soft tyres. Sorry, please do continue.
I was just saying, Lazzo will certainly be looking up to where Silver Arrow is in the race, having qualified only a couple thousandths apart, and kind of wishing what could have been. That being said, VTech Panda still sitting just inside that about half-second mark of Silver Arrows, just kind of riding that back bumper, maybe hoping that Silver Arrow is going to pick up a penalty, maybe make a mistake, or try and make that move very late so Silver Arrow can't fight it back. But Neuro now has 5.6 seconds to chase down Rage, and we'll see how quick the pace is on those soft tires, as he's got that much lighter fuel load to deal with than the cars that were on the soft tire at the start of the race.
It's interesting you mentioned that same battle I was looking at there with VTech Panda chasing Silver Arrow. Despite the older tyres by 3 laps, VTech is putting in some really good times at the moment, and crucially, what we discussed earlier on today with that management of the ERS system in this game, VTech has about 70% of his charge available, whereas Silver Arrow only has about 30. So, with DRS and overtake now active, we have the AlphaTauri closing up to the back of the Mercedes. VTech Panda pulls out and goes to the inside, and it's a fairly good move there. Nice and simple, nice and easy, but will it be all? And Silver Arrow hangs it around the outside. A good defense of his position there as he keeps his Mercedes in front of the AlphaTauri. They're now going through that final sector there, and VTech's going to have all that work to do again. Was that just the offset and tire grip there that allowed VTech to be re-overtaken by Silver Arrow around the outside?
It sure looks like it. I mean, VTech Panda had the straight line speed, had the inside line of Stowe, but Silver Arrow, both with the tire grip and the extra bravery to keep his foot in around the outside of Stowe and get that position back.
So this is producing some cracking racing now in the midpoint and towards the end of this race then. So lap 18 we're on now with VTech still right up and close behind Silver Arrow. That AlphaTauri getting an awful lot of coverage on the Formula 1 Racing League PC Division 1, which of course you're watching here with us right now. Tom, you've been quiet today so far. What are your thoughts on how this race is unfolding? Is there anybody that you've kept your eye on in particular?
Well, I've been keeping an eye on, obviously, this battle between VTech and Silver Arrow, which was developing so early on in this race, perhaps around the pit stops, laps 10, while the Neuro, Penichiro, Rage, Lazzo battle was unfolding. That battle is now stretched out. We've got second gaps in between all of them. For Neuro, he's got to be really pleased with how this strategy's turned out.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tom. Sorry to interrupt you. We've got VTech going up the inside of Silver Arrow again. It's at that same corner. Will Silver Arrow be able to hang around the outside? He is for now, but when they come down into this heavy braking zone, will VTech be able to keep it? Yes, he does. He's around the outside there, which turns the inside of that corner there. And, bit of an oversteer moment. And that allows Silver Arrow to get back by again. VTech is really trying here, isn't he?
He's pushing real hard to try and get that one done. Maybe he needs to change the idea. Maybe try and go around the outside of Stowe. Take away Silver Arrow's advantage with that extra tire grip. Pinch him against the apex. But Silver Arrow into the chicane. He bounced over the curbs and picked up a penalty. So now VTech Panda, I think, is going to have a penalty offset advantage on him at this stage.
Of course, VTech Panda is sometimes known, just by me, as Mr. Clean in this league. He's usually the one who ends the race with no penalties at all. There's been one race, I think, so far this season where he's picked up penalties, and it was only the one. So I'm actually doing him a disservice by saying penalties, multiple. But here we go then. So that battle continues then. The gap is a little bit bigger than it has been the last few laps. Perhaps VTech just saving up some energy, saving up some tyres, and just seeing whether or not he can mount another attack here. He's got that half-second gap or so to Silver Arrow in front. I don't think in the best of all worlds here he's going to be able to mount a challenge on this DRS straight, but we'll have a look and see. He does have the DRS open. He briefly used the overtake to get a good exit out of Chapel as K-Tomatic sets another fastest lap of this Grand Prix, a 1:26.8. You won't get that Grand Slam today because he, of course, hasn't led all of the laps. Rage leading a couple here and there, and Neuro as well. But he will be able to take home at least some silverware, pole position, and the fastest lap if things unfold the way that they are currently. And you have to say, with an 11-second gap now to Fraser in second place, it's unlikely that we're going to see much of a change at the top.
Yeah, barring any kind of major mistake, Kato should be able to bring this one home. He has had some troubles the last couple of weeks with some mistakes here and there, but I'm sure he would have taken some time off heading into this weekend to get his mind in the right place. And Kato's quick. I would be very surprised to see him make mistakes on 3 race weekends in a row.
So here we go then. So we've got that gap now. We're just going to update you on the situation with Neuro. He, of course, came out of the pits, had to defend his position from Dog, then made the overtake on Penichiro a lap later. And then once he'd made that move, he had about 5.6 seconds to close down on Rage ahead in the Ferrari. Now, that was about 2 laps ago. And with Rage now only 2.8 seconds away, what do we think of this battle, chaps? Do we think that we're going to see Neuro making a move on Rage, or will the Ferrari driver be able to hold off and keep position 5?
The fight is going to go pretty late. I'm checking lap times for both Neuro and Rage. Neuro lapping in the mid to high 27s, Rage lapping in the mid 28s. So about a half a second.
Sorry, once again, we've got the AlphaTauri fighting the Mercedes. VTech Panda had a go into that corner at the end of the straight there. He's now having a look up the inside into these final couple of corners again. But as before, Silver Arrow doing a fantastic defensive job here, able to keep on his line, keep VTech behind, and whilst maybe the penalties might shuffle him further down the order at the end of this race, you have to say it's a brilliant bit of defensive driving going on at the moment. But VTech is closing up once again through Sector 1, a lock-up from Silver Arrow as they head round now into this slow section of the circuit. You're going to need to be very careful when you're powering on here and not wanting to, as VTech just demonstrates, a bit of an oversteery moment as they head onto the DRS straight. DRS active for VTech at the moment, but no overtake in use currently. Just the regular ERS system deploying down the straight to be able to maintain the gap to Silver Arrow rather than necessarily close it down. Please tell us again about the lap times, Quimbulis.
Yeah, so Neuro lapping about a half a second faster than Rage. You can see actually he's already closed it up now to 1.8 seconds. But just to talk about this battle with the VTech Panda, you see how much the back end is stepping out on him, really putting a lot of energy through those rear tires. I think that tire offset. Ooh, Dog is retired. There's a safety car out.
There's a safety car out there. Dog is out of the race. I don't see what's happened to him. We're just going to have a look now in terms of our cameras. I've not been able to pick him up myself. The closest car that would be able to see him next would be Penichiro, but he has parked it towards the end of Sector 1, the start of Sector 2 there. So what has happened? Has he... I've been told we now have a replay that we can show as to the incident, and we'll see that in just a moment's time. Quimbulis, what do you reckon of this?
Well, it's always tough coming out of left field, just getting the car out of sorts, and then there's barriers close there. So, unfortunately, he tapped the gravel and found the wall coming there.
Yeah, he just on the exit of Brooklands, he just dropped it. I'm assuming probably as you have to unwind the car and getting the best possible exit, just we'll actually be able to see perhaps the remains of the car as K-Tomatic comes around with the safety car. Maybe put a toe on the gravel and then spun to the inside. Is actually parked at the old pit entrance, minus a wheel on the front of the car. So that's what it sounded like.
Yeah, and I'm seeing in the chat the Brundleism, ambition exceeding adhesion in that case, and definitely the situation when those tires start to wear out, especially out of a slow corner like left field where you're really unwinding the car and getting on the throttle. It's exactly what can happen.
And we now have an opportune pit stop for Lanzo. He's at the back of the field. He's gone onto those soft tyres. He had nothing to lose, really, by doing that. And he'll close up to the back of the pack and be able to hopefully make those work and gain some positions after his own bad luck at the start of this race. Would have really had him in it as a shoe-in for a podium had he not had a mistake chasing Fraser and battling at the start of the race here. Of course, we've seen the Brundleisms in chat, of course, ambition exceeding adhesion, but we can add in the usual ones. He's gone straight to the scene of the accident. He's run out of talent, all those good ones there. So we will see how this race unfolds. Of course, Neuro's job is now that bit easier, having to close up the gap to Rage ahead. He's now going to be right on the back of the Ferrari driver as they come round towards the end of the lap here. The safety car still out and still leading the pack, which is going to be good news for Lazzo, as whilst Penachiro has now joined back off that train. Lazzo is now just going through Maggots and Beckett's. So with that, I'll leave Quimbulus just to quickly run you guys through the order, and I will be back in just a moment.
Yeah, so behind the safety car, we've got Kato-Matic leading out front, unfortunately losing that 11-second advantage he had built to Fraser in P2. Silver Arrow sitting in P3 now with VTech Panda. That battle still going to go on. We'll see who can get their tires fired up for the final racing laps. Rage leads just ahead of Neuro. There's a significant tire advantage there. Neuro really getting that gap erased for him, so he should be quite racy coming off. And then Pinachero and Lazzo bringing up the rear. We'll see if the safety car will stay out long enough for Lazzo to catch up to the back of the field. But I would say the big winners in the situation of this safety car has to be Fraser and Neuro coming in, because that tire offset is going to be very big for Neuro, and Fraser still has the same age of tires as Kato-Matic out front. And we've seen it before. Kato-Matic in these safety car restarts, when the tires get a little cold, the car gets a little unpredictable after he's been pushing so hard. And speaking of getting the tires fired up, Lazzo is basically doing a full push lap to try and catch back up to the field. So he is going to have tons of temperature in the tires, full race temperature when that safety car comes in. So look for him to get an early move, an attack on Pinachero, and that fresh set of tires, he may even be able to charge down Neuro and Rage. He might, after the tough race he's had, this late safety car may put Lazzo in a position that he could get into the top 5 of the race.
Absolutely. Very, very good. So just as we're following the safety car at the moment here, I haven't seen the lights go out just yet. So now the lights are off. So safety car in this lap, but whilst they're just finishing off their safety car lap, Quimbulus, if you're looking to join this league or just discuss Formula 1 in general, where should you head?
Well, for this league, if you head over to Reddit for our F1 Racing League, the subreddit there, we've got our race threads there telling you about all the times the races are happening and the sign up thread. So jump in there. But also there's discussion on our Formula 1, which is where this league originally started. And we've combined this season with our F1 game. So all of those communities building up as Kato-Matic is now slowing the field down, letting that safety car get all the way in before we see when he takes off to start this one.
And away he's gone then, the McLaren driver leading them away. It still feels very good for me to say that as a fan of the team and former employee. So there we go. So Fraser now chasing Kato-Matic as they head down through the first sector then. It's about a second's gap already from Kato-Matic back to Fraser, but then Fraser under pressure from Silver Arrow behind him. VTech it's now closed up nicely to the Mercedes driver ahead, but they've both got to be wary of Rage just behind, who's on those younger medium tires. But then further back we have Neuro on those soft tires, younger soft tires, and obviously with less life taken out of them for how long they've been on the car, given that they've had this period behind the safety car. They might be taking just a little bit longer to warm up though, because Rage has been able to develop a bit of a gap to Neuro just behind and is closer, in fact, to VTech Panda just ahead. In terms of Lazzo, we're now seeing, as he pulls alongside Penachiro, it's side by side. Will we see a repeat of the racing point earlier on? No. Penachiro gives him the space and Lazzo moves up into P7. He's only got one lap on those brand new set of soft tires, so he's now chasing down Neuro, the other soft tire runner at this late stage in the race, with only 2 laps to go then, 24 out of 26. And do not leave at all, and keep on watching, because this is going to be a good one, ladies and gents.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing to keep in mind is with the way how late the safety car came in, there's not going to be DRS at the end of this race with 2 laps left to go. There's only 3 flying laps. Might get it down just the final DRS area if my math is correct. Might get on the very last lap, but Lazzo now having a bit of a racy look at Neuro, this time tucking into turn 1. maybe thinking of his past move, but he is setting up very well, having those fresher, soft tires totally fired up from chasing down the pack.
And as we're having a look then, so as K-Matic is starting to stretch his legs again at the front of the field, Neuro now under massive pressure from Silver Arrow, who's been able to get right up behind him through those corners there, but then on the straight, losing out as the McLaren seems to just pull away that bit easier down the straight there. Perhaps Lazzo running a bit more wing, as the Twitch chat is now asking me about my career, we can talk about that later. There's some racing to watch. So we've now got 2/10 the gap then. Lazzo to Neuro just ahead of him. Neuro then half a second behind Rage just in front. Of course, no DRS, as Quimulus has mentioned up to this point. So it's all going to be about corner exit. It's going to be about how you maintain the tires, whether you put too much temperature through them, too much effort, and how you manage your energy through these last couple of laps here. It's a good exit, it seems, for Lazzo as he now enables the overtake briefly and then switches it off again as they head down the straight. Neuro has been able to pull a bit of a gap on him as he's also used the overtake, but a bit more usage of that electrical energy down the back straight. And as the cars now come back down again, they're all itching to go into attack mode and all just have a go at one another. But it seems as though the dirty air and the nature of the Silverstone circuit, it is causing them to just bunch up and stay nice and close, but not be able to quite effect a move. As Quimulus said earlier on in the broadcast, of course, we have got very few heavy braking zones here in Silverstone, so it gives you less opportunities to either have a lockup in the car ahead or to be able to effect a move yourself with a dive bomb down the inside or perhaps even something risky around the outside. So Rage has closed up nicely on VTEC Panda. The AlphaTauri just having a small lockup there and is losing a bit of ground now to Silver Arrow, who's maintained a beautiful defensive drive throughout this race. Guys, I think this is going to prove one that's going to go right down to the wire here with all these close gaps, all this pressure that's mounting on all of these drivers. Quimulus, how does this compare to the end of your race as we see Lazzo now closing up behind Neuro?
Our race was quite a bit more spaced out at the tail end. I had to chase somebody down for P6 at the very end, made the final move into Stowe on the last lap, but Neuro and Lazzo nose to tail coming through Magnus Bay. DRS wasn't able for this final lap, but I think there's going to be a train. So Neuro is going to have the help of the DRS in front of him, but Lazzo with that slipstream up the inside, not using that overtake, surprising, but he cuts it in, has a little look inside of Stowe, but not able to get his nose fully in there to finally make that move stick. That was a time to use the rest of your overtake. It's the last lap, make that attack hard, but maybe just worrying about penalties and getting spun around. But Kato comes across, Fraser, VTEC, Neuro all coming in. Once they give us the final screen, everybody crossing the line so quickly and all so close together. We'll have to see how everybody shakes out after penalties there.
A real shame for Lazzo there as he, unbeknownst to him, I'm sure, but Neuro ran out of ERS deployment as Lazzo disabled his overtake on the final straight. So he could have enabled that electrical energy and been able to just keep on pushing and get his way by there. That's a real shame for him there. But K-Matic then is your race winner, has got himself Fraser and who's that else on the podium? VTEC Panda is on the podium as well. So those guys there are your podium for today then, after all the penalties and everything have worked out. So Silver Arrow making a decent race there, but unfortunately with his penalties, he was unable to maintain P3 there. So your order then is K-Matic, Fraser, Neuro, Penichiro, Lazzo, Silver Arrow, Rage, Dog, and Like $100. Of course, Dog and Like $100 out of this race earlier on, and then the rest of those cars, the positions predominantly determined by the penalties there, unfortunately. And you've got to feel for Lazzo as well. He had that penalty, of course, from earlier on in the race, but then he's had the issues with Dog and the other drivers over the course of the session. So, guys, that was a really exciting race there. I'm sure that everybody watching will agree. What did we think of it? Who are our drivers of the day? Usually we start with Quimulus, but you know what? This week, I'm just going to hand over to Tom. Tom, who did you think your driver of the day was today?
I really appreciated the different strategies from, I believe it was Neuro, who obviously went medium first and then to softs. And I like the idea at the end of the race from Lazzo to go onto the softs and to take the punt at perhaps fastest lap and making back some places. Unfortunately, perhaps for him, he felt he could have maybe got a few more, but finishing 6th when at one stage in that race he was down in 8th is probably not too bad. So I'd give it to those guys who are running a slightly different strategy.
Yeah, and
Fantastic, good stuff then. Oh, sorry, yeah, I was about to
No
introduce
worries.
the Quimbilus. After you, after you.
No, I was just going to agree and say, yeah, definitely going with Neuro in this one. I usually VTech Panda seems to get a lot of my personal driver day, but Neuro making the alternate strategy work today, stretching those medium tires out long at the start of the race there, having really good pace and being very racy the rest of the way. And most importantly, staying clean, because with that very, very late safety car bunching the pack back up, you saw it. The penalties were essentially the deciding factor for a lot of positions in that race.
Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. I think I'm going to be slightly controversial here. I'm going to say that my drive today was actually Silver Arrow. I thought the defensive driving was fantastic. He was able to maintain a position which, frankly, I think with the other drivers on the grid, with the sustained attack that he suffered lap after lap after lap, and sure, he ended up exceeding track limits and to maintain that position on a couple of occasions, but I think it was some solid defensive driving and worthy of the P3 that they finished on the road. But then, of course, that time penalty dragging him back down the order. So that's my opinion. But of course, you guys will have your opinions, and I'm sure everybody in the comments will as well. Oh, hey, in fact, in the Twitch chat at the moment, saying Kato dominant as usual, have to give him driver of the day. So rough, losing so many positions on +6 second penalties, Ipsis said in the chat as well. And name is secret, also saying such a penalty slaughter at the end due to safety car. So then, guys, in case you missed it during the safety car period, we have mentioned a couple of places you could go if you'd like a bit more of your F1 related action. So we have the F1 subreddit, so R Formula 1. We then have the F1 game subreddit, R F1 game. That's where you can have a look at more stuff if you're interested in the gaming side of this. And then, of course, for the league, we have the R F1 Racing League subreddit. So go and check us out there. If you want to join us, then please sign up on the threads that we have over there and post your lap times and that sort of thing from the time trial. Guys, is there anything that you want to shout out yourselves and any kind of closing thoughts there?
Well, with today's race, it was round 8 of our 12-round season, so still a third of the season left to go. So those of you looking to join in, at least get a taste into it. You may not be up the championship table just because the season's so far in, but you can really get a feel for how the league is going. And we're definitely always looking for more people to come in and join. It's a very welcoming committee. We try and find a slot that matches your pace, and there's plenty of banter and chat that goes on around the league outside of that. So definitely come and join us.
Fantastic. And how about yourself, Tom? Anything to add? Any closing thoughts?
Just to say, check out the broadcast tomorrow evening for Division 3, and make sure you guys check the driver threads for the PS4 division, which will also be happening tomorrow, which I'll be racing in. And hopefully we have a good result for a Brit in the British Grand Prix. I don't think we've had one win so far. And also to shout out that the race that happens before Division 1 here in PC is streamed over at twitch.tv/ohey12, who is in the chat tonight with us. So make sure you check that out. And there are warm-up acts, I like to think, but it's great quality racing there and here and all across the league. So to echo the words of Quimbilus, make sure you go and check us out on r/F1 Racing League, where you can sign up and come and join us.
And I just want to throw one more shout out to Tom for doing all the graphics and hosting the stream and really making it a very professional setup. I think it's probably one of the best looking Racing League streams out for the F1 2020 game, and I think it may even in some ways be better than the official esports streams.
Thank you so much.
Well, we do have we often do say that we have the best in the way of F1 esports server on this particular channel. So if you want to see more, then please do check us out in the future. If you're not a regular, if you are, then give us a follow. If you want to subscribe, then please do. Of course, we will appreciate anybody who does that for us. And yeah, thanks very much for joining us then. I have been joined by the wonderful Quimbilus.
Thank you for having me again.
The amazing Tom Mack.
Thank you, sir.
And I've been Daniel Gilligan. Thank you very much for watching then, everyone. And we will see you next time in Netherlands for Zandvoort.